Okay, everybody. Good evening, Democrats.
Good evening,
Good
Democrat.
evening, John.
Good evening.
Oh, we got some new
Evening,
people here.
Democrats.
Let's get everyone to unmute for a second. Good
Good
evening,
evening.
Democrats.
Good
Good
evening,
evening,
Democrats.
Democrats.
Okay, great. Now everybody can be quiet. Um, while we get started here, thanks everybody for being here. Welcome to this special meeting of the Santa Monica Democratic Club. Tonight's meeting has been called specifically for one purpose, to consider and vote on our judicial endorsements for the Los Angeles Superior Court races. These are important down ballot elections, and for decades, our members have relied on this club to take the process seriously and thoughtfully. Judicial races don't always get the same level of public attention as the headline contests, but really, people do a lot more research on like the governor's race where we didn't make a recommendation. These offices have a real profound impact on people's daily lives, on justice, and the direction of our court. So it's really important that we provide this service to let everybody hear directly from these candidates. And these videos also get to live on YouTube, so people who are researching the race later on may come across it and hear from everybody. So before we begin, I also want to preview just what's ahead for the club for the next couple of weeks. We still have our regular April meeting coming up at just a couple weeks from now on Earth Day, April 2nd. At that meeting, we'll hold our annual board election and welcome two new board members to the team. We'll also be joined by Jake Levine, the candidate for the U.S. House in our neighboring district to the north. But just to be clear, we're not making an endorsement in that race. We're just simply welcoming Jake as a friend of the club who we've known for a while and giving members the opportunity to hear from him. And in recognition of Earth Day, we're also hosting, which is going to be an awesome panel discussion that we're putting together now on how disadvantaged communities are being harmed by the Trump administration's anti-environmental agenda, including the policies that are outlined in Project 2025 that are now being actively carried out. And the panel will be moderated by our own Santa Monica Councilmember Alice Raskin, and we'll be sharing the details of the full panel lineup in the next few days by email. I also just want to share a quick update about tonight's program during the voting period later this evening. While everyone's voting, we'll be joined for just a short discussion on last week's troubling Supreme Court decision, Chiles versus Salazar, which overturned Colorado's ban on gay conversion therapy. And we'll be joined by our Santa Monica Councilmember Dan Hall and the Stonewall Democratic Club's president, Renay Rodriguez, for that conversation. Now, returning to tonight's business, here's how the process is going to work. Each judicial candidate will have 2 minutes to address the membership. We'll go in office order number, and it's in order that they're listed on the ballot. After we hear from the candidates, the board will move, or the club then moves into a brief closed discussion period to deliberate. Then we'll come back from the closed session and everyone will get a chance to vote. I'll also note that there's a couple of races on the ballot where the club is not weighing in. As far as we're aware, those contests don't include Democratic candidates. Our threshold for consideration this cycle was whether a candidate sought endorsement from the Los Angeles County Democratic Party. Before we begin hearing from candidates, I'll read the board's recommendations. So the recommendations are for Office 2, Tal Valbuena, for Office 64, Maria Ghobadi, for Office 66, Ben Forer, for Office 81, David Walgren, for Office 116, Paul Thompson, for Office 176, Zachary Smith, for Office 181, Ryan Dibble. And those will appear on the ballot. You'll see the names of the recommendations uh, for your reference later on, just in case you didn't write down everything I just said. Um, these recommendations came out of a multi-step process, which we've used for many cycles now. We have a judicial endorsements committee. This cycle that consists of Mike Soloff, Derek Devermont, and Barbie Applequist. They conducted interviews with each of the candidates and asked a separate set of evaluation questions tailored to those judicial races. And following those interviews, the committee met independently to deliberate and to formulate its recommendations. And then those committee recommendations were presented to our executive board for consideration. And in according with our governing procedures, uh, the bylaws say board recommendations have to have at least 7 votes in order to come forward to the membership. So where that threshold was not met, we didn't have a recommendation. And just to say, in most of those cases, it was because we felt that there were multiple strong candidates and we didn't want to put our finger on the scale too much in those races and just leave the decision fully in the hands of the membership. And finally, just to clarify this last point, the recommendations I just read are recommendations only. The membership alone has the power to decide endorsements. The board made advisory recommendations, but the vote belongs entirely to you. So now we'll hear from the candidates, and each will have 2 minutes to make their case. We'll start with office number 2, Robert Draper. And not seeing Mr. Draper here. So we'll move on to the next candidate, Tal Valbuena.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep. Hey, Tal.
Okay, very well. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello, good evening. My name is Tal Valbuena. I'm a candidate running for Los Angeles County Superior Court, office number 2. I'm running to improve our system of justice that gave me refuge 25 years ago. I came to this nation with nothing but hope, started my life with ground up, working as a dishwasher, and went on to put myself through community college, learn English, became an auditor. Along the way, I experienced a lot of success, but I also started to see social ills in our country. I was subjected to Islamophobia, homophobia, and I turned that into service. Serving on a jury changed my life forever. I witnessed an innocent man prosecuted for murder, only targeted because he was Black. That experience led me to law. And so to that end, I have for the last 10 years served as a deputy district attorney, making sure that no innocent person gets prosecuted, at least not under my watch. Because for too many people in our community, the courthouse does not feel like a place of fairness. It's a place of fear, a place where they feel unheard, unseen, and left behind. My biggest concern, and the reason I'm running, is access to justice. That means every person, no matter who they are, understand what's happening in their case. It means they feel respected when they walk into the courtroom. It means the system works not just efficiently, but fairly. In my work as a deputy DA and as a commissioner serving on the LGBTQ Commission, I have seen how deeply trust in our institutions has eroded, and I've spent my career trying to rebuild that trust, case by case, person by person. We need judges who are prepared, who are fair, who treat every person with dignity, judges who understand the real life impact of their decisions. I'm running because of my lived experiences, my life experiences, my public service, my commitment to this community has prepared me for this role. I'm proud to have earned the Democratic Party.
Tal, sorry to cut you off. We went past the 2-minute mark. I'll try to be more assertive about it. But thank you.
Thank you.
For the other candidates, just if you are somebody earlier asked me to share the timer. I don't have the digital version, but if you can see my square when you're talking, I'll hold up the timer for you guys. Okay, next up we have Office 14, Angie Christides.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, go ahead.
Excellent. So I've been registered as a Democrat since I was 18 years old. That's 30 years. And my track record through my career, and let's be clear, every judicial candidate you're going to hear from has experience in the courtroom. I do too, plenty. But what distinguishes me is that I'm a fighter. And what I fight for is the underserved communities in LA County. I have spent about 8 years working in Compton and about 10 working in Long Beach. And throughout my career, I have been fighting to keep law enforcement accountable. It is not okay for police officers to come into court and withhold information or misrepresent the evidence. I have fought to make sure that doesn't happen, even to my own personal detriment. Because as you might imagine, law enforcement doesn't like being held accountable, and there's a lot of backlash and retaliation that comes with it. And I will continue to fight because it's the right thing to do. My obligation is to the communities that I serve, and my obligation is to the public, not to law enforcement, not to my office. And it is only when the public trusts us that we can build trust back into the justice system, so that when people come into my courtroom, they know they're going to be treated fairly. A lot of people left my office during the Gascon era because they were not open to the policies that he implemented. I stayed and I learned so much about mental health diversion and the benefits of treatment also for our underserved communities. There are so many ways to help people that a lot of judges just plain ignore. I'm lucky that I've had that experience, and I want to make sure everyone in my court gets treated with civility and respect and fairness.
Thank you, Angie.
Thank you.
And we'll now go to Irene Lee. Irene?
Yes, good evening. Irene Lee for Office 14. I've spent 18 years in our justice system, in criminal and dependency court as a deputy district attorney and deputy county counsel. But my commitment to this work started long before I became a lawyer. As the daughter of immigrants, I believe diversity is our strength. Being the product of Koreatown and the 92 riots, I watched my parents and their friends navigate a system that felt out of reach. I'm honored to have the support of the LA County Democratic Party, Operating Engineers Local 12, Assemblymember Mike Fong, Lori Levinson, the founder of the Innocence Project for Loyola Law School, the Asian Pacific American Bar Association, Mayors Paul Tsao, Liz Yang, and Frank Yokoyama, members of the legal community, and over 100 sitting judges who trust in my commitment to serve with integrity. My perspective is shaped by the people close to me who have fought battles with addiction, mental health, and incarceration. You can never truly know someone's story just by looking at them. I've seen the heavy toll it takes when families are caught between criminal and dependency systems. This is why I'm so passionate about making our courts more accessible and inclusive. I believe in accountability for anybody who breaks the law, no matter what their occupation is, but I also believe in the power of second chances. For example, I handled a case involving a mother struggling with addiction whose toddler had wandered onto a freeway on-ramp. She was facing prison, but I agreed to refer her to Women's Reentry Court, and this allowed her to treat her addiction and return to her child as a sober parent. To me, a judge's job is to ensure that every person who walks into the courtroom is seen, heard, and treated with dignity. As a working mom, I understand that our communities are strongest when we support families rather than fracture them. My work and community service are aligned with the values of this club and the Democratic Party. I'm the only Asian American candidate running across all contested judicial races, and the one in this race who has a proven track record of ensuring access to justice for the marginalized immigrant communities and the elderly. I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Irene. And then you may have noticed we now have an official timer. Thank you to Sarah Roos who got that set up. So it's in the, you can see a timer window, and then it also appears on the top of the Zoom screen, I believe. Okay, thank you. And then we'll go on to office number 64. First up, Rhonda Haymon.
Good evening. I'd like to first indicate that for 26 years, I've been a servant of the law. Now, what does that mean? That means that I have gone into courtrooms and actually stood by the people who are unpopular, voiceless, and who feel powerless. I've been that source of power. And what do I mean by that? I mean that I've been willing to go up against prosecutors and some judges who may remain stagnant in the law. The voters of California have asked for restorative justice. I've been on a restorative justice journey for 26 years. And as a law school professor at Southwestern Law School, I'm also helping to shape the future of the courtroom. And oftentimes, people are seen as aggressive or assertive when they want to hold people accountable. My job has been to know the prosecution's case and to also push them forward into how we can invest in the person, because when we invest in the person, we have a better community. I was held in contempt for justice. And what does that mean? That means that a judge held me in contempt, but the State Bar of California, they exonerated me. They did nothing to me because I was fighting for justice. And when you fight for change, which I will do on the bench, I will be uncomfortable. I've been comfortable with it for 26 years when I've been representing the most unpopular person in the courtroom, and I've been successful. 100 over 100 jury trials. Of those 100, only 4 were lost. 1 was overturned on appeal by making a record. My client was facing life. He went home because of a record that I made, the same type of record that I was attempting to make when a judge held me in contempt. And the key to that is that we need a balance. We need a balance of people who will not only know the law, but do something with it. Every question for these endorsements have asked, the voters have lost faith in the court. What do you think about it? Well, what I think about it is that I won't be deterred from standing on justice, from standing on what is right, no matter what person stands in my way. And I've done that in the courtroom, and I'll do it on the bench.
Thank you, Rhonda. Now we will hear from Maria Ghobadi.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Maria Ghobadi, and I'm a judicial candidate running for Los Angeles County Superior Court seat 64. I have dedicated my life to public service. For over 17 years, I have fought on behalf of victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and families who have lost loved ones to homicide. And I haven't just spent my 17 years serving Los Angeles in the courtroom, but I've also worked extensively in the communities, because we all understand that you can't just work in the courtroom. You have to understand the communities. I worked for years in underserved communities, in homeless shelters, food banks, working to help fund kids that can't afford education, housing, transportation to and from school, as well as going into classrooms and helping teach young kids how to make better life choices. My goal now is to not just take this experience and just sit here, but I want to take my experience both in the courtroom and in the community and now serve Los Angeles now on the bench, where each person that walks in that courtroom is treated equal and each outcome is measured and fair. I also want to let you know that my decisions are informed not only by my time in the courtroom and my time in the community, but I myself, as an immigrant who came to this country not speaking the language and watching my family fight to make a better life, that has helped me not only understand myself, but the beauty and diversity and cultures and the understanding that we all need access. That is the big thing. And so I would fight for that as a judge. I have been honored to be endorsed by the Los Angeles County Democratic Party, by Avance, by the Citizens for Accountable Leadership, by the Operating Engineers Local 12, almost 60 judges sitting and retired, as well as a broad coalition of both defense attorneys and prosecutors. And I'm now humbly asking for your endorsement. Thank you very much.
Perfect timing. Thank you, Maria. Okay, so now we'll go on to office number 65, 3 candidates for this one. And first up, we'll hear from Justin Clayton.
Thank you for the opportunity to be considered for your endorsement. I am proud to be a lifelong Democrat, raised in a Democratic household where I was taught the values of fairness, equality, and opportunity. Those values are not just political ideas to me. They have guided my personal life and my professional career. For over a decade, I have served the people of Los Angeles County as a public defender. In that role, I have stood alongside individuals from all walks of life, ensuring that their constitutional rights are protected and that our system of justice works fairly for everyone, not just those with resources. My work has given me a deep understanding of the real-life impact our courts have on families and communities. Beyond the courtroom, I have remained committed to service. As president of the Los Angeles Black Public Defenders Association, I have helped lead efforts focused on community engagement, mentorship, and access to justice. That includes organizing and participating in expungement clinics, know your rights panels, food and toy drives, and outreach programs that bring resources directly to underserved communities. These experiences reflect the core values of the Democratic Party, a commitment to equity, community, and justice. I believe our courts should reflect those same principles: fairness, dignity, and respect for every person who enters the courtroom. As a judge, I will apply the law faithfully, remain impartial, and ensure that every individual is heard. I bring not only experience, but a perspective grounded in service, community, and a lifelong commitment to democratic values. When we talk about perspective, one thing that makes me unique and separates me from other candidates is that I am a member of the communities that we talk about. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles. My neighbors are the people being deported. My neighbors are the people who don't have access to justice. My neighbors are the people who are being discriminated against. And not just my neighbors, my family members. So on the bench, I bring their perspective. Endorsing me and being elected as judge does not only impact a community, but it also will impact all of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Justin. And let's move on to Anna Slotky-Raytano.
Hi. Oh, shoot. I don't know if you can see me. I'm sorry.
It's okay. We hear you.
Okay. Thank you. In 2022, I ran as part of the original Defenders of Justice slate. With your club's endorsement, I came close to winning. And while I fell short, our campaign did help shift the conversation around judicial elections. Voters are asking for broader perspectives on the bench because of that effort, and that momentum continues. I'm asking for your support to finish what we started together. What distinguishes my candidacy in this race is the breadth of my experience across the justice system in public interest specifically. I started out as a law clerk for the DA's office in law school, as well as post-bar. Once I passed the bar, I worked in criminal defense, fell in love, and I ended up handling criminal defense, labor, and administrative hearings for sheriff's deputies. I also spent a couple of years solely focusing on law and motion work, but ended up joining the public defender's office in 2014. I spent over a decade there as a trial attorney handling juvenile cases for 3 years, and my last 5.5 focused solely on serious felonies. In 2024, I became a deputy county counsel in the Justice and Safety Division, supervising high-profile criminal or civil trials. More recently, I've focused on advising departments dedicated to care first, community investment, and alternatives to incarceration. So I'm working on the framework instead of just representing the people. I'm trying to make the system itself more fair. Judges exercise significant discretion within the law, and that discretion must be guided by fairness, sound judgment, and humanity. With 20 years of public service, 17 as an attorney, I bring a well-rounded, practical understanding of how the justice system impacts real people. My experience as a courtroom advocate and a government advisor, along with my perspective as a mother of 3 and a sibling of someone who's justice involved, allows me to approach cases with both rigor and empathy. I've been endorsed by East Area Progressive Democrats, Citizens for Accountable Leadership, judges, public defenders, prosecutors, and mental health professionals. I respectfully ask for your endorsement one more time to bring this uniquely balanced and experienced perspective to the bench and to carry forward the progress we began together. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Anna. Now let's go to Chiles Jimenez.
Thank you. I've spent 23 years helping people through some of the hardest moments in their lives. I'm Chiles Jimenez, and I'm running for seat number 65. I've been a Democrat since I was 18, so that's 32 years as a Democrat. I've represented thousands of people dealing with divorce, custody, and domestic violence. That's what most people actually go to court for, not criminal cases, real life. I built my career standing next to people when everything is on the line, their kids, their homes, their families, their future. I've taken hundreds of cases from beginning to end, and I run my own law firm, which means I make decisions every day. For over 2 decades, I manage people and I make decisions. And these cases require a different type of understanding. You're not applying the law, you're making decisions that affect children, families, and people's ability to move forward. And when those decisions are delayed, people pay the price. They miss work, they lose jobs, they have stress, and it builds, and their kids feel it. I see that every day. And as a judge, I will run an efficient courtroom. I will be prepared. I will respect people's time. And I will move cases forward to make sure that people get back to their lives. Because in family law, time matters. That's what is personal to me. My experience also includes, for the last 16 years, serving as the board of a nonprofit providing meals, showers, scholarships, and support to people in crisis in the Los Angeles community, including Skid Row. I've worked directly with families who are struggling to make sure that they have access to basic needs. I'm also a wife and a mother of 3. My husband is a US veteran of the Army. And through both my family and my family law practice, I understand the needs of military families. I'm running for judge because I bring something different. I also have the experience, unlike any other candidate. I've been a bench judge officer for 4 years as pro temp judge. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Shelley. And now we'll go on to Office 66. Ben Forer, is he here? Don't see him on the list. Ben? Okay. If anyone knows Ben Forer, wants to reach out, now's the time. We'll bring him back if he comes in the next few minutes. Let's go to Office 81, David Walgren.
Good evening, everyone. My name is David Walgren. I'm an incumbent judge, seat 81. I've been on the bench for 13 years. A little bit about myself. I've had 30 years of experience in the criminal justice system. I was born and raised in Los Angeles. I went to local schools, graduating from UCLA magna cum laude, and then on to UC Davis Law School. Following law school, Gil Garcetti hired me as a deputy district attorney, where I worked for about 17 years. Handling some of the most high-profile and complex cases the office had, largely spent in specialized units throughout that period of time. In 2012, the LA County Bar Association honored me with the award of Prosecutor of the Year. Following that, I was vetted, and I will say I have 30 years experience in the criminal justice system, also a lifelong Democrat since the time I first voted when I was 18 years old. In 2012, Governor Jerry Brown vetted me, did his due diligence, and he determined that I was an appropriate candidate, and he appointed me to be a judge in 2012. I've served since that time with honor and distinction. I'm a fair, compassionate, equitable judge. I'm an efficient judge. I know the law. I'm prepared on the law. When you come into my court, you are heard. You are treated with dignity. And whether you agree or disagree with my rulings, you know your voice was heard and you were treated with the respect that you deserve. I want to continue the work that I do. I have wide support across the legal community, from prosecutors to defense lawyers. I have, I believe, over 180 judicial bench officers on my website currently endorsing me, including all of the management of the Superior Court bench. And I would very much appreciate and humbly request your endorsement so I can continue the work I do. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you, David. And Dan Kapelovitz here. Didn't see him.
John, can you hear me?
I did see, I'm going to go back to Ben in just a second. Yeah. Okay.
Great, thank you. I'm on a plane, sorry.
We can see that. Yeah, that's cool. Okay. Not seeing Dan, so let's go back to Ben Forer. Ben, thanks for joining us, and you've got 2 minutes.
Thank you so much for having me. Sorry for the late log on. My name is Ben Forer. I'm a candidate for seat 66. I have been a deputy district attorney for 20 years. My specialty is cybercrime, where I focus on complex frauds and online crimes committed against individuals. In addition, I've been teaching at USC since 2014. I teach cyber law and privacy, as well as law and technology in the School of Engineering. And I've published 2 textbooks on cyber law, as well as multiple law review articles on the subject and on very complex subjects. I decided to run for judge because I thought that I represent an individual who's well liked by both sides of the aisle, as well as by judges, who is a thoughtful and considerate individual who's willing to take into consideration so many different aspects of all cases, and I've represented that throughout my career, as well as a legal knowledge and an academic base that is necessary for the judiciary as we move into a tech-oriented world. My legal research and it really heavily involves on privacy law and cyber law and the relationship between those, and especially our constitutional rights and how government might be interfering or in our privacy rights and in our constitutional rights, and as we evolve. And finally, I'll just end off with I'm very much inspired to follow the footsteps of my grandfather and my great uncle, both who were serious civil rights attorneys. My great uncle desegregated Washington, D.C. My great uncle argued 15, 20 cases in front of the Supreme Court, mostly involving constitutional rights and First Amendment, freedom of speech, and famously had several famous published cases where he was very effective in his advocacy on behalf of indigent and underprivileged people. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks so much, Ben. Okay, we'll move on to Office 87 now, and we'll go to Cherie Sanders Gordon.
Thank you. My name is Cherie Sanders Gordon, and I'm running for Los Angeles Superior Court Judge, seat 87. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, my career has always been about strengthening our communities from the classroom to the courtroom. Before I became a deputy city attorney, I was a teacher in Watts, and I witnessed firsthand how violence impacted my children and their families. That experience shaped my decision to go to the city attorney's office and use the law as a tool to protect communities. I have served in the Los Angeles City Attorney's Office for over 25 years. I have directed the Neighborhood School Safety Program and the Prostitution Diversion Program during my tenure. I've handled hundreds of criminal cases with fairness, balance, and integrity. I have pushed the envelope and proceeded with cases never tried before in the city attorney's office, all to protect victims of crime. Now I'm seeking to serve as a Superior Court judge because I believe deeply that justice matters, not just in theory, but in the everyday lives of the people who walk into our courts. I also believe our courts should reflect the communities they serve. Every person who enters a courtroom deserves to be treated with dignity, respect, and the assurance that they will be heard. A judge's role is different from the role of lawyers. Lawyers advocate for one side. A judge must step back, listen carefully to both sides, and apply the law fairly and thoughtfully. My promise is simple. I will lead with grounded temperament, objective judgment, respected integrity, decisive leadership, open-minded consideration, neutral application of the law, because that is the kind of judge I believe our community deserves. I have trained senior lead officers all throughout my training, all throughout my years to help them connect with communities and better serve the communities that they are in. I humbly ask for the endorsement of the Santa Monica Democratic Club. I believe I will be the judge that our community deserves and the judge that they are asking for at this time with all the uneasiness we have.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thanks, Cherie. Now we'll go to David DeJute.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is David DeJute, and I am respectfully asking for the endorsement of the Santa Monica Democratic Club. I've wanted to be a judge my entire life. My dad was a judge, and a very good one. People that won in his courtroom felt he was a very good judge, but people who lost in his courtroom also thought he was a very good judge because he treated people fairly, without bias, without discrimination. And as a young boy, that inspired me, and I've been preparing to be a judge my entire career. I'm currently the director of the Disaster Relief Clinic at Pepperdine Caruso School of Law. I was asked to start up that clinic by the clinical director to help pro bono fire victims in the Eaton and Palisades fire. So I teach students how best to serve those who have been impacted by disasters, while at the same time providing free legal help about insurance, predatory pricing, everything that's related to the really devastating effect that these fires have had. I've stepped back from my private practice in order to do that because I thought it was the right thing to do. And I think we want judges who have that kind of public spirit. But I've held pro bono classes my entire life. I've also served at the U.S. Attorney's Office, where I was honored to represent President Barack Obama in the birthers case. I was the assistant U.S. attorney selected to represent the president, and my mother still talks about her joy of hearing her son say, David A. DeJude on behalf of the United States and President Barack Obama. I'm a proud endorsee of the Los Angeles County Democratic Party, Avance, Citizens for Accountable Leadership, and I would do my best to be a fair, impartial. I'm also a gay man with a wonderful son, so I ask earnestly for your vote.
Thanks so much, David. And now we'll go to Office 116. And let's see, Pat Connolly, is he here?
He's a Republican.
Oh, well then he's not invited.
He's declined to skate.
Okay. Well, either way, he's not a Democrat, so we'll make sure he's not on the ballot. But Paul Thompson, you're up.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm so humbled and honored to be here with you tonight. My name is Paul Thompson, and I'm running for seat 116. I'm running because I believe that a judge is a position of public trust, a position that is given to people by the people. The power is given to the people to serve humbly and to use that power to benefit everybody within the community. I believe that a judge should embrace the laws that are passed by our elected representatives, including the laws that deal with diversion and with second chances. One of the reasons that I'm running is because I believe that those laws should be embraced by judges. I believe that a courtroom should be a place where people have equal treatment. And that is a goal that we're still striving for. I know that personally because I was a leading proponent within my office. I've been a deputy district attorney. I'm in my 20th year as a deputy district attorney. And I was a leading proponent during the Me Too era in seeing more of those cases prosecuted because I believe that the people who are victimized by wealthy and powerful offenders should get the same justice that everybody else gets. And I was the lead prosecutor on the Harvey Weinstein case here in Los Angeles that resulted in his being convicted of rape and other sexual assault charges. I'm running against a judge. He has been disciplined multiple times. He is the most overturned judge on appeal in his courthouse. And most of his recent overturns on appeal are because he has not followed the law on those recent laws designed to promote diversion and second chances. I'm endorsed by the Los Angeles County Democratic Party, by Stonewall, and by Avance Democratic Club. And I would appreciate your support. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Paul. Now we'll go to office number 131, and we'll start with David Ross.
Hey, folks, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, sorry, I can't see you. Good evening, Santa Monica Democrats. My name is David Ross. I'm running in seat 131. I've been a public defender, and I am not a politician. I've also been a Democrat since 1976. And I'm running because the judicial system has been under assault. Going back to 2016, I was on the ground helping Hillary Clinton in Las Vegas. And when Trump won, I knew one thing, that he would appoint activist judges. And I was right. It's time for everybody to have independent judge. I've been a public defender for 30 years, helping people with no voice. People who are 3 to 5 times more likely to be arrested, charged with a crime, and thrown in jail. They deserve due process. fair treatment, and the public deserves the trust in the system. Over 30 years, I've done 113 jury trials, more than all of my opponents combined. I've represented 10,000 people. I've done 2,000 preliminary hearings. I've been a law professor and a judge pro tem, and I know how to hit the job running, the ground running. I've also been a TV reporter, a documentary producer, and a legislative aide to a Democratic congressman from Indiana. I know how laws are made and how they affect people. And people trust me. I am endorsed by 75 judges, unions including electricians, postal workers, operating engineers, marine clerks, the EAPD. I'm also endorsed by Steve Cooley, the first district attorney now retired to ever endorse a public defender. I'm endorsed by over 100 public defenders, prosecutors, and city electeds because they know my work ethic, honesty, and judicial temperament. I humbly ask for your vote and your endorsement this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And now let's go on to Donna Treifman.
Hi, Santa Monica Democrats. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much. My name is actually Donna Triffman. I'm proud to be before you as a candidate for Superior Court Judge in Office 131. I am a Los Angeles County Deputy Public Defender, actually, and I am also a lifelong Democrat. For 30 years, I've stood next to people at the most difficult moments of their lives when everything is on the line. I'm currently assigned to the Major Cases Unit, handling the most serious and complex cases, including special circumstance homicides. These cases demand not only legal expertise, but courage, integrity, and sound judgment. They also require even temperament and collaborative efforts. What I've learned is that people can accept outcomes that they don't like, but they cannot accept a system where they feel invisible. My experience is not just a ticker tape of numbers. While I've completed over 100 trials, I'm very cognizant that each number represents a person, a human being with a life story. That perspective has grounded me throughout my career and shapes how I approach justice, with rigor, compassion, and fairness. I will be the type of judge who understands that fairness is not just about the outcome, but about the process. Justice is not only about punishment, it's about opportunity and second chances. As a juvenile supervisor, I've guided young people toward accountability and toward building productive lives. Through teen court, I've helped youth learn from mistakes without being defined by them. I believe in a system that protects public safety while investing in the limitless potential of our communities, especially those who've been historically marginalized. I'm the daughter of immigrants. My parents came to this country believing in the promise that the law could protect, not just punish, that fairness and opportunity could be real for everyone. That belief inspired and inspires my career as a public defender and drives me to ensure that every person who walks into a courtroom is treated with dignity and respect. Everyone who comes before me will have the dignity of visibility, not just as a number, but just as an individual with distinct circumstances. I'm also running as someone shaped by real life outside the courtroom. I'm a widow and a single mother. I know what it means to carry responsibility, to make difficult decisions under pressure, and to keep moving forward with resilience. Those experiences shape how I approach the bench with strength, humanity, and empathy. I'm also the only woman running in my race for a bench in which women are underrepresented. I won my office, Gideon. Oh, thank you, Mr. Katz. I'm so sorry.
That's
I
okay.
hope to earn your endorsement. I'm so sorry.
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thank you much.
Okay, let's go to office number 176. Gloria Marin. Not seeing her here. Okay, let's go to Zach Smith.
I don't think she's a Democrat.
Go ahead, Zach, you're up.
Oh, thank you so much. My name is Zachary Smith. I am running for office number 176. I appreciate this opportunity. I'm very thankful for the recommendation of the group to endorse me. I have been endorsed by the LA County Democratic Party. I've been a Democrat my entire life, and I really mean that by my entire life, since riding a tractor in Jimmy Carter's inauguration. In my hometown, Washington, D.C. I've been a public defender for 23 years in the county of Los Angeles, risen to the top level trial attorney. Prior to that, I worked in New York City for the Legal Aid Society Juvenile Rights Division, representing Children in Dependency Court. The reason I've done this and the reason I've committed my life to public service is because of my background. The reason I'm running for judge is because the things that I see that are important in a judge are not the things I always see on the bench. And I also feel that my background, I bring a perspective that I don't see very much on the bench as well. Here are the things that I think are most important. Temperament. You can't have an ego. It's not about you as you're the judge. You're there to be the eye of the hurricane, not the hurricane. And you have to have humility. You have to have a commitment to fairness and integrity. You have to have life experience and career experience. You have to have wisdom, which is combining not just the intellectual capacity, but also the understanding of where that fits in the context of the world, where that fits in the context of how people actually live and what makes sense and common sense, and humanity, how to treat everybody, how to see everybody as someone you would want to, how they would be treated as someone you love and not different because it's not someone you can imagine being your son or your daughter or your friend's son or daughter. And then even efficiency and making sure that people get to have their things heard. I come from a family of 10 children, 5 from foster care. Sorry, I know my time is basically up. 5 from foster care, 5 biological, multiracial, gay, straight, black, and white. And that background and experience has led me to take this stuff personally, the importance on fairness and equality. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And finally, we go to Office 181, Ryan Dibble.
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right, excellent. Good evening, everybody. I'm Ryan Dibble. I am running for seat 181. I am a current Superior Court Commissioner. My performance on the job as a judge will be not theoretical. I'm actually already doing a lot of that job as a commissioner. I have proven judgment and experience. Before becoming a court commissioner last year, I was a deputy DA for 19 years with the LA County DA's office. I handled complex cases in the gang, narcotics, and justice system integrity division, some of the most intensive divisions for complex cases that the office prosecuted. I'm currently hearing and deciding cases daily. I focus on fairness, preparation, and consistency in my rulings. I have real courtroom decision-making experience, and much of that involves people who are representing themselves in small claims court, as well as in unlawful detainer actions, eviction cases, which I take very seriously, and I understand the importance of all of those matters to everybody who comes into my courtroom. I'm endorsed by the LA County Democratic Party, Avance Democratic Club, Torrance Democratic Club, Citizens for Accountable Leadership, the Metropolitan News Outlet has dozens of sitting judges. I'm an adjunct lecturer in law at USC. I also have mock trial mentorship and project lead mentorship experience in public service, and I operate a nonprofit for scholarships as well for first generation college students leaving a high school in South Los Angeles. Long story short, I'm already doing a lot of the job that I'll be doing as a judge. So I would really appreciate your endorsement. I'm a current Superior Court Commissioner, and I'd be honored to have your support in my campaign.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. And now I think let's just take a quick moment to thank everybody, all the candidates for coming today. We really appreciate, you're putting yourself out there to run, and we're really glad that you came to speak to us. So at this point, we're going to move into a brief closed session discussion before ballots are distributed. This portion of the meeting is intended to allow attorneys, legal professionals, others with firsthand professional knowledge of these candidates and the courts to share some candid perspectives that may help inform the membership's decision making. So to preserve the integrity of that conversation and to allow people to speak openly without any concern for professional repercussions for themselves, for their clients, particularly given that many attorneys may appear before these judges or practice in the same community, we're asking all judicial candidates, campaign representatives, and anyone who's directly affiliated with a campaign to please exit the Zoom meeting at this time. You can come back in probably 30, 45 minutes or so when the ballots go out. We're going to pause the recording during this portion of the meeting. And once ballots are ready to be sent out, everyone can come back in. We're going to take a brief moment now to allow those participants to log off. So if you're a candidate, campaign staff, please log out of the Zoom and you can come back in a little while. Thank you all so much. Okay, and thank you everybody for waiting. And of course, it was just about 30 seconds to a minute break there for those who were on YouTube wondering. Just kidding, it was quite longer than that. We're now returned from closed session, and at this point, we are moving directly to voting by secret ballot. And I'd like to take a moment right now to clearly explain the process so everyone is on the same page before ballots are distributed. Tonight's endorsements will be decided solely by the membership through electronic ballot. And hearing no request otherwise, although now would be the time to say so, there will be no vote by acclamation and no voice vote, right? Okay. Every endorsement decision tonight will be made by secret ballot. In just a moment, we're going to send out ballots by email to all the eligible voting members. Once I now announce that voting is open, please take your time and carefully complete your ballot. If you have any questions or experience a technical issue, please reach out to me by DM or to Mike Soloff. We're going to keep the voting window open for 30 minutes, so it'll go until 9:40. It might be 29 minutes of voting. I'm going to clearly confirm when the ballots are out in just a minute, and I'm going to give a warning right before the window closes. Okay, is everyone clear on the process before we proceed? Okay. Thank you. So while members are voting and completing their ballots, we're fortunate to have a timely and important discussion lined up for tonight. I'm going to hand over the chair duties for a moment to our Vice President of Political Action, Sean Kaloji, to introduce our conversation on the recent Chiles versus Salazar Supreme Court decision, and then introduce our guests.
Thank you so much, John. And thank you to our judicial panel again for this. And I'm glad that we had so many candidates participate and judicial officers that came to participate in this discussion. Yeah, so, as someone that's a part of the LGBT community, and, for many minority communities, obviously the decisions by the Trump administration and in particular by the Supreme Court, supported by Republicans and the Trump administration and all of the Republican senators that put these folks on the court, is very alarming. And most recently, this Chiles versus Salazar decision is a concern. And so I'm pleased that we have our city council member, Dan Hall, to come speak to us, and also an attorney, distinguished attorney, and president of Stonewall Democratic Club, both members of the LGBT community, to kind of have discussion about what this decision means and how it will impact our communities. So thank you so much, Dan, for being here, and also to Renay Grace Rodriguez for being here.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it. Good evening, Santa Monica Democrats. Dan, as you know, city council member and also one of your elected delegates to the California Democratic Party. As Sean mentioned, I identify as a gay man, so I've been watching this case with a close eye for a while, since it will deeply affect the LGBTQ community. So for those who are unaware, last Tuesday, the Supreme Court handed down its decision in Chiles v. Salazar, which is a case that many people probably haven't heard of, but it's going to be one of the most consequential LGBTQ plus rights rulings in a generation. For decades, advocates have fought to end conversion therapy, which are medical practices designed to change a person's sexual orientation or gender identity. A vast majority of scientific and professional medical associations have evidence-based positions that conversion therapy not only doesn't work, it causes documented serious harm to children. 26 states had passed laws banning it for minors. in every major medical and mental health organization in America. The American Psychological Association, the American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics are all united behind the science here. And then the Supreme Court last week, 8-1, stepped in and said, not so fast. So tonight I'm joined by Renay Grace Rodriguez, who can help unpack the case and the court's decision. We'll be doing a little Q&A. Renay is the president of Stonewall Democrats of Los Angeles and a practicing attorney. She spent her career at the intersection of law and LGBTQ rights, especially. Renay, welcome. Before we get into it, it's great to have you here. Dear friend of mine, can you give us a brief introduction to yourself and how you came into LGBTQ plus advocacy?
Well, let's see. Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for hearing us out tonight. And I can only speak from my own personal experience, but I know that I was fired from 4 jobs because I used the wrong pronoun when I mentioned my partner. And that got me very much interested in, what rights do we have? And when I tried to complain about those positions being lost, there was nothing that anyone could do for me at that time, because this was the 80s. And I watched, a lot of things happen to our LGBT community. Our gay men dropped, seriously, I was part of the marching band in Twirling Corps in San Francisco, and we went from 120 members in 1982 down to 40 by 1986 because of the AIDS crisis and all the members we had lost to the AIDS crisis. So I've seen a lot in my 62 years that I've been dealing with this. So one of the things that my firm does is I've done trust estate planning for LGBTQ people. I've also been a volunteer in terms of doing petitions for guardianship for LGBTQ families at the LGBTQ Center. That was part of my advocacy. And then I decided to step away from pro bono work and do more advocacy around politics. And so here I've been dealing with the Democratic Party and also fighting for our inclusion when we were about to be generalized out of the party platform by just saying, marginalized people. And we went to bat and we fought and we got Rick Chavez Zebur to stand with us and a whole lot of other people to stand with us and says, no, you will put LGBTQ rights in there. You will mention Black people. You can use the word Black. You can use the word, these marginalized communities. And we got them to put that back in. We got very lucky circumstances, the stars, the moons aligned, and we were able to get it in. So that's kind of the history where I come from. And then being put as president of Stonewall Democratic Club, it supported me another platform to be able to advocate for LGBTQ rights on a different level. And one of the things that's the most important things for us to do as advocacy is that we have to be honest with ourselves and honest with with our legislators, and they need to be more honest with us. So with that, I'm going to go back and forth with Dan to talk a little bit about this case, because there's some ideas that we've discussed that we'd really like to hit home.
Yeah, thanks, Renay, and thanks for all your advocacy. I remember that in San Francisco just a few weeks ago, fighting to make sure marginalized communities were included in the platform, and it was thanks to your leadership that those were. So thank you. So let's start with the basics. Can you explain to us what actually is conversion therapy and why has basically the entire medical establishment condemned it?
Oh my God, do I have to? There's a movie that came out not too long ago that really demonstrated what conversion therapy is about. In fact, I remember as a child, they tried to use some of those techniques on me for my eating disorder, and it's shock therapy, right? Where they'll shock you. So whenever you try to think about any kind of sexualization with men, they'll shock you. They'll do all kinds of things to you. They'll try to shame you in a group. And you can see more about that in this movie God, I wish I could think of the name. Somebody look that up for me, please. It just came out not too long ago. They did a screening of it right here in Hollywood not too long ago, but not something that's been healthy, because it's like, how do you convince me not to be a lesbian? How do you convince me not to like pizza? But it goes beyond just liking pizza, right?
And most conversion therapy today, though, is, while that certainly exists, a lot of it is talk-based. And that distinction matters specifically for this case because the plaintiffs deliberately framed the harmful, aversive kind of techniques as relics of the past, while defending this modern kind of like talk-based therapy, right?
Right. So let's get into that just a little bit down here,
Yeah.
because that's one of the boy erase. Thank you, Anastasia. Boy erase. And I got to go to the opening here in Hollywood with it, and it was so fascinating to meet the artists that were involved in that film and to talk about the things that had happened. But you're right. That's one of the things that, let's start out this way. We talked about the idea of conversion therapy. That's the evil word here. And when the legislature in Colorado banned conversion therapy, they didn't think of all of the ramifications of what form that therapy took. Was it just verbal? Was it actual taking action, putting you into a group, sending you to a farm, what it looked like? And so in this particular case, Colorado just blanket banned conversion therapy. It's bad for you, shouldn't be done, et cetera, et cetera. But the problem with that is there's a thing called viewpoint protection. And this particular therapist brought up the issue that, look, what goes on between me and my client in terms of what I talk about, I should be able to talk about the alternatives. If I'm able to talk about someone being queer, and I use that word because that's my more modern use for all inclusion without specificity is queerness, but that if I'm able as a therapist to talk about that, I should be able to talk about the alternative. And if you can't talk about those things because it's against the law, then where does that leave you in terms of viewpoint protection? And I want you to think of it this way, and hopefully I'm being very clear when I say this, is that what if the law had gone the other way? What if this were a red state, right, where it went the other direction and they says you can't talk about affirming queerness? Then we would be in an uproar about that. And so that's one of the things the First Amendment protects. We may not like a person's viewpoint, but we literally can't pass laws that hinder viewpoint speech, which is that's what this is when it comes to the speaking part of conversion therapy, and that's what this all applied to, was just the speaking part of it. So let me stop, let you talk it down.
Yeah, so maybe let's take a step back. Let's just like talk about the facts of the case before starting to analyze some of the rulings. But like so like who is Kaylee Chiles, and like what does she actually do? And you talked a little bit about like what Colorado's law says. And then also I want to bring in the Alliance Defending Freedom, who were the lawyers representing Ms. Chiles. Can you tell us a little bit about the facts of the case there?
Right. So basically what happened in this case was it was a therapist who Colorado passed a law that said that that made it illegal to force children into receiving conversion therapy. And it was just, again, it was this blanket rule of conversion therapy. And Ms. Chiles, or Giles, as she likes to pronounce her name, was very much of the mindset that, well, wait a minute. She didn't think that way. She felt that her viewpoint was that people could be converted, or at least at the very least should be able to talk about what conversion looks like. And that's exactly what she wanted to do, is she wanted that privilege. And what happened is the ADF, that the acronym, picked up her case, much like the ACLU picks up cases that defend a lot of people's freedom. This ADF is very much responsible for trying to pick up cases where they're trying to enforce family, religious rights the way they see them and the way they should be enforced.
Yeah, and for folks who don't know about it, ADF is the organization that brought us the Dobbs ruling, which overturned Roe v. Wade, 303 Creative, which allowed a web designer to refuse services for same-sex weddings. They're financed by folks like the DeVos and Koch families. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, is a former ADF attorney. So these are not friends of the club, to say the least.
No.
And so, Renay, can you tell us how did this end up at the Supreme Court? Like, how did the lower courts rule?
Oh, you know what? I didn't break that down, Dan. Do you have that information?
Yeah.
I
So
really
I
didn't
can
break
talk a
it
little
down.
bit about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So both the district court and the circuit court denied Chiles' injunction. And they basically held that Colorado's law regulated professional conduct, and that the speech of her conduct as a therapist was incidental. And they used the framing and applied rational basis. Sorry, they applied rational basis review, which said that the law was fine. But there were several cases that were similar across the different circuit courts that ended up coming out with different rulings. And so because the circuit courts were split, that gave the Supreme Court grounds to bring it up to the Supreme Court. And so they granted that in 2024, and then they heard the oral argument in October.
And Zach, you had a comment as well that they did send it back to the circuit court to apply strict scrutiny. And for our not so well informed, when we're talking about protected classes of people or protected conduct by the Constitution, there's a very high level of scrutiny that the government has to show that it's a really super compelling reason while they're doing while they're passing the law that they're passing in the government's interest before they'll allow it to infringe upon these groups. So it's very rare that it's allowed to happen. And then when we talk about rational basis, well, that's not a protected group of people. Is there a rational basis why the government wants to create this rule? And you're absolutely right. In this case, they said, oh, rational basis, this isn't discriminatory. This really has to do with the protected speech of Giles. And that's the reason they ruled the way they did. Craig, you had a question? For a comment? Craig, can you hear us? Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay. You had mentioned some of this conversion therapy, and you had mentioned the term shock therapy.
Correct.
I'm wondering specifically if it came up as to shock therapy, what is it that they did to keep it from being a torturous type thing, if at all? And did that argument come up while they were deliberating, the use of this as a means of correcting that kind of behavior?
And I would answer you this way, Craig, is that didn't come up because by the time it went up to the Supreme Court, the issue before the court was very limited to just the being able to speak about conversion was the core issue before this court, and why it became framed as a First Amendment protected form of speech. And they call it viewpoint protection is what it's referred to
So
as.
they didn't look at the process itself. They were just looking at the speech connected to it.
Just the speech connected to it, correct. And the rights of the therapist to be able to, of how they give therapy, what they say in their therapeutic sessions, even if it does include, we can fix you language.
So walk us through, now that we're kind of talking about what happened and what the court ruled on, and in the chat, Zach Smith is right. They sent it back to the circuit court to apply strict scrutiny. Walk us through the majority opinion. This was an 8-1 ruling, which I think surprised a lot of LGBTQ advocates. What did the 8 justices agree on, and what was kind of their core legal theory here?
And I mean, the way I read it now, granted, I'm giving you my brief opinion on it here, but let me pull up my notes real quick because I wanted to share this with you. The decision is that when government is going to pass laws that limit speech, they cannot limit the speech just because they don't agree with the ideology behind it. So here, this is something that's been around for a while. They've had organizations like this. I think it was like the National Institute of Family, the NIFLA. They wanted to add more constitutional protections to speech for therapists in other areas, and this was one of the ways that they handled it. Now, in my notes, I mentioned dissent for Kagan and Sotomayor. That's not they were dissent. They were concurring opinions, and they added to this that they really didn't like the idea about, the message that it tries to send, but it is the right. We have to look at it from the opposite side. What happens if we have a therapist whose speech is limited, being able to talk about what it means to be queer or to have gender queerness or not being non-binary and those sort of things. We don't want the other side to be able to pass laws that do the same thing and restrict therapists in that regard. So they had to take the position that, yes, the court is correct. We do have to protect this speech in this case. But what the two justices always pointed out, and what Justice Jackson pointed out, Ketanji Jackson pointed out, was the fact that a lot of these people, this doesn't mean that we take away all the protections for youth, because if in fact therapists cause harm, they still cannot cause harm to young people. So if they cause harm by trying to get them to convert and talk about conversion in a way that causes duress, emotional disruption, those sorts of things, and damage to a child, that child still has recourse in terms of being able to pursue action. But many times they're not able to because the families are the ones that put them there to begin with. So it's still a dangerous precedent. But when it comes to the First Amendment precedent, it was the right decision, but it really sends a bad message in terms of the rest, in terms of how these issues should be addressed when it comes to LGBTQ issues. The other thing I wanted to point out also was here is that one of the things that they talked about is that there are ways that we could amend the law to make it content neutral. So we frame it as licensed professionals cannot engage in treatment that fall below accepted medical standards or cause harm to minors. Now we tie it back to the evidence-based medical guidelines and not the ideology. And that leads me to the other point that I really wanted to drive home today, that sometimes our people in the legislature, when they come up with legislation, they're coming up with legislation that is very performative, that I can't imagine when Colorado came up with this, that they didn't have some attorney general telling them, hey, this isn't going to pass constitutional muster, but writing it the other way that says you can't expose children to practices that are harmful, etc. Writing it that way didn't have quite the I'm protecting gay rights oomph to it that the legislature would have wanted. And so they left us hanging out there. And this is kind of similar what happened with Roe v. Wade. Sotomayor had always warned us that Roe v. Wade had a weakness in it, and this is where the weaknesses were and why we needed to legislate around that we needed to get Congress to adopt a national pro-life, free choice decision. They had to come up with that they could have done that to protect us, but they don't. And our legislature has demonstrated this kind of cowardice and performativeness that we need to be very careful to look at when we talk to our legislators and we want them to protect our rights. They've got to be more careful that when they see something that isn't going to pass constitutional muster, then they got to write it in a way that it could have. And Colorado could have written it that other way. There was even discussion, if you go back and you read there's notes like when the discussions are when they're going through the legislative process, there's discussion notes in there about things that they considered. And that was one of the things that they had considered. But guess what? They dismissed it in favor of doing this law that would send a clear message to Trump and his cronies that, no, we're not going to let you engage in conversion therapy, and left us more vulnerable because of the ruling.
Yeah, I think that the Kagan Sotomayor concurrence was the most interesting thing coming out of this ruling to me, because in effect, like you said, Kagan in her concurrence basically like wrote the roadmap that is available for legislators and LGBTQ plus advocates to pursue on how to protect kids from harmful conversion therapy and still pass constitutional muster for the First Amendment. Now, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, our newest justice appointed by President Biden, did dissent. She was the sole vote against it, and read her opinion from the bench, which is really rare and is a signal of pretty deep disagreement. What was her argument in the case and why she dissented?
Let's see. Well, hold on. I got to look at my notes on that one because I wasn't focusing so much on her dissent.
Renee, sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure everybody knows that we're going to close the balloting for the vote at 9:40. So you have 7 more minutes to get in. Okay, let me get out of the way. Go ahead.
Thanks, John.
Okay, so kind of what she was really, hold on a second. I got to look for my notes here. Where did I write down my notes? Do you have notes handy on that?
Yeah, I mean,
Quite prepared. Go ahead and talk about the
yeah,
dissent.
sure. So, basically, Justice Jackson's point of view was that states have always regulated the medical profession. What they do, what they say, when speech is restricted as part of like legitimate safety regulation, and came at it from that point of view, as opposed to not necessarily the idea that it conveys, the speech conveys. So she argued that there was no ideological suppression, of a point of view in the Colorado law, and that it was acting on consensus of scientific evidence. And basically, like, the warning that she gave in her dissenting opinion was that, like, before now, licensed medical professionals had like scientific standards that they generally had to adhere to. Now they can give advice and basically say that it's protected under free speech, even if the advice is not, what the scientific majority would say. And so, just some like parallels that I was thinking of earlier that could be applied here is like, that would be like a licensed nutritionist or a dietitian telling a cancer patient to stop chemotherapy and to take essential oils instead, and say that like, oh no, I'm just saying it so it's protected under free speech. I don't think, we would want that from our medical professionals. Another example would be like your pediatrician saying, I don't believe in vaccines. So my recommendation is to not vaccinate your child. And that is now, I guess, a protected right under the First Amendment. So I think her whole point of view here is that, like, once the First Amendment becomes involved in medical decisions, it's essentially judges that are going to be making medical decisions and not doctors, and what is acceptable treatment.
And I think that this raises the specter of the way the Supreme Court is looking this, like when we talk about the cake, the wedding cake case, and some of these other cases where they try to tie it to a fundamental First Amendment right, and then all of a sudden decide that things that were absolutely not legitimate under other aspects of the Constitution, like the Commerce Clause. In other words, how we get affected in one state in terms of, can I get a wedding cake or not, or can I do those kind of things in this state or not? Now we're starting to say, well, what about people's rights to say no for that specific reason? And again, it's framing it as a parental issue, as parental rights, but it doesn't go both ways, does it, Dan? It's like,
that was actually going to be my next question is,
yeah.
like, there's a couple of other cases that have touched on queer rights recently. Like, how does this fit with the court's earlier decisions in Scrimeti? So that's the case that upheld Tennessee's ban on gender affirming care for minors, or Mirabelli v. Bonta, which said that California's ban on schools outing children to their parents was illegal. It feels like the court's contradicting itself a little bit here. Can you explain those cases and how they're different, I guess?
So in Mirabelli, or how they explain it's different. So in Mirabelli, if a child had an issue talking about wanting to use a name different than their given name, or wanting to use pronouns that were different from what they were biologically identified because they're exploring transition, this sort of thing, that there was a California law that said, that Bonta defended for us, that said, no, you can't out this information to parents. You can't, disclose, because in many times there's a reason why this child doesn't want their parents to know anything about this, because there may be some fear about what's going on. But what the Supreme Court came back and said, sorry, Rob Bonta, but parents have a right to decide how their children will be reared and educated, and parents have a right to know these things, especially if it's something that could possibly cause harm to them. And so the court ruled on this one that the parents had a right to know. But interesting enough, on Skermeti, they came back and said parents don't have a right to decide what health care is available to their child, just because. And that would have been a classic situation of viewpoint protection, to say, if I'm a parent that has the viewpoint that my child can, and I together with our doctor can make these decisions about what we want or don't want for our child, then we should be able to make those decisions. Go ahead. And I think we have some questions, right?
Yeah, Mike.
Thank you both for this. I saw the articles about that and didn't have a chance to read the opinions yet. But my question is this. You mentioned that you felt that Kagan and Sotomayor tried to create a roadmap for what legislatures can do. Are you saying you think it's a roadmap that the other six would accept, or it gives us a chance to argue it's more in the lower courts, but what we really have to do is change the Supreme Court?
Well, the thing is that it really is something the legislature can change by writing the law differently, so it doesn't touch those sacred cows that the Supreme Court tries to claim. And what happens is, when we bring that, if we rewrite the statutes so they fit the framework that Kagan and Sotomayor gave us, then it puts the Supreme Court in the position of basically having to contradict itself and reverse itself, because it won't be able to decide the new case on the legislation the way it was proposed by Kagan and Sotomayor without calling into question what they decided in the case today with Giles versus Salazar. So I think that's why the roadmap is there, because it will make them look very foolish if they contradict themselves. You can't have one in one case and one in the other, especially if we write the law to specifically fit that framework. Craig, you had a question.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Since this is about debate, I'm wondering specifically what you and/or the Democratic Club can do in order for it to be teachable moments in the future, to have that vigorous debate. I mean, is that something that you see the Democratic Club playing a positive role in addressing, what obviously becomes a hostile thing towards protected groups? What do you see as the process going forward?
And I know we're at time, so maybe let's broaden this as kind of a broader closing argument, Renee, to build on what Craig's saying. Like, what is the path forward here for advocates for queer people, for LGBTQ plus medical, science-backed medicine? What's the path forward here?
Well, the path forward is to really pay attention to these little crumbs that Kagan and Sotomayor gave us in this case, and there's other cases like that. But one of the things that we have a bandwidth challenge every Democratic club has is holding our electeds, holding them to what they say they're going to do, and to make sure that they're not merely performative when they go to put legislation together. A lot of clubs have a legislative chair that tries to keep track of legislation, but it's just not enough. We all have to do more to subscribe to updates, and also start talking more to each other about how we can identify candidates that are going to do the good work that we need them to do for all of us. And the other thing I want you to make sure you understand, allies, we cannot do this without you. Even if we are 10% of the population, we can never get anything passed. Our rights will never exist without you. We need you, allies. We need you to stand up for us. Thank you.
And one thing I would add to that is Senator Scott Wiener has introduced legislation at the state legislature, Senate Bill 934, which would broaden the state's medical malpractice laws. giving former patients who've experienced conversion therapy more time and stronger grounds to sue counselors for harms allegedly caused by conversion therapy. So I would encourage us as a club to take a look at that bill and see if that's something we can support.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank
John,
you all
I
for
know we're
having us.
Yeah, John, I know we're over time. I see Danny and Derek both have their hands up. Do we have
Yeah,
time to
so
take them? Or?
before we go to their questions, let me share the results, everybody. And because we are going to have a round two, so we will have time where it'll have a quick round two vote, but let's just share where we're standing right now. I'm building the ballot. Okay, so we had 52 ballots submitted, and in office number 2, Tal Valbuena is endorsed with 84%, 85%. Going to office 14, Angie Christides is endorsed with 57% of the vote. And in office 64, Maria Ghobadi is endorsed, 90%. In office 65, Justin Clayton is a bit short, but Chiles is below the 20% threshold, so we're going to have a runoff in that race. In office 66, we've endorsed Ben Forer. In office 81, we've endorsed David Walgren. In office 87, we came up short. David DeJute came up short. However, we don't have a candidate to remove from the ballot because Cherie is above the 20% threshold, so that one stays as no consensus. For office 116, we have 78%, Paul Thompson. Oh, Connolly got a write-in vote there. Office 131, similar situation here as what I just described, where Donna Treifman is ahead, but David Ross is above the 20% threshold too, so that one will stick with no consensus. And Zach Smith and Ryan Dibble, congratulations, are both endorsed as well. So the one race that we have a runoff in will be this office number 65. So I'm going to get that ballot out as quickly as I can. It's going to be a quick vote. As soon as you get it, vote. We're going to end it at 10 o'clock. You guys keep going. I'll get the ballot out.
Okay.
And just for the interest of continuing this conversation, all the candidates who got endorsed will have a chance to say thank you and such after this conversation. I just don't want to interrupt what you guys are talking about here, so please continue.
Okay. Danny.
Yeah, so I think there's about 24 other states that have a similar conversion therapy ban, like Colorado, including California, obviously. Do you guys have a sense if our statute is written in any way different from Colorado's in that it's still safe and protected after this decision? Or is it now also at risk of getting struck down?
So, I'm not a lawyer. I know that our law has been challenged in court. It's been upheld by the courts. But I don't know enough about the differences between our law and Colorado's law to say anything definitively. I would expect we will be in litigation again very shortly over this because of the ruling.
And I can also take mention with that as well, is that yes, the California law is now vulnerable, but it doesn't mean that our law is struck at this point. They made it harder for states to defend laws that look like they're restricting what the therapists say in talk therapy. We have a similar law banning conversion therapy for minors. And so we could be facing it being, we may have to change that and it may not be enforceable. And I'm sure Attorney General Bonta isn't going to enforce that given this decision. We're going to have our legislature come up with more specific language about how they can create more professional conduct and medical standards. In other words, you can't treat minors with therapy that falls below the standard of care for therapists, and conversion therapy falls below the standard of care, and therefore they can't do that. So that may be the way to get around it.
Gotcha. Thanks.
And Derek?
Have you safely landed?
I've landed. I'm waiting for luggage. But there was a question that was asked and an answer, and the answer was right on. And the question was, what can we in the Democrats do? And the answer, which is already put out there, but I'm just going to hammer it, do our best to stop those in elected office from passing legislation that is either clearly unconstitutional or has a highly significant chance of being declared unconstitutional. Because when they pass these laws, they are advised of it, they know the realities of it, and when it gets to the court, it's going to do more damage than good to the causes that we are seeking to advance. All right, ran over.
But here's the selfishness of it, Derek. The selfishness of it is that these electeds are in office and they want to get our vote. And when the legislation sounds good for today, they get our vote, but tomorrow down the road, a year later, when they don't need our vote and it's declared invalid and we got to start over, then our memories seem to be very short, and we don't seem to have a way as a community to retain memory about what some of these legislators do. So I think that's where we experience the problem, is people forget.
Exactly true. And these laws, not these laws, but laws that are clearly unconstitutional when passed, or like I said, have that significant risk, are passed solely to garner votes or raise money. Yep. And a lot of the electeds know what ultimately is going to happen. And now what we're seeing, as we see in this case, is that when this happens, it's not just about that law being struck down, but creating case law that can have lasting damage against causes that we value. Second rant over.
Yeah. Really quick, just to let everyone know, the ballot's out, round 2. We have 10 minutes. So just everyone just vote. It's just 10 minutes. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Ellis?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I want to thank you both for this really important conversation. It's it's a difficult time to be an attorney. It's a difficult time to be on the forefront of movements of social justice and trying to move the pendulum of justice in the right direction. And really appreciate the work that both of you have done to advance that both locally and in general in the law. I found the opinions in this case interesting. It wasn't exactly how I expected the lineup to go. I thought that Justices Sotomayor and Kagan would take a little bit more of a hardline approach on standing up for the practical effects of the law, in the sense that there are public health consequences to speech sometimes. You can't shout fire in a crowded theater. And to the extent that there are limits to speech, I thought that those limits would come into play here. Just as a second tangent to this, and I don't know if you want to respond to this part, but the the movement towards justice, towards the broader LGBTQ community, at least as I've seen it in the Supreme Court's jurisprudence, is really extraordinarily recent. It was 1986 when Justice Lewis Powell, who wrote, an opinion against the LGBTQ community, said publicly that he had never met a gay person, despite having hired gay clerks himself. And the fact that so much of this is happening in the living lifetime of people is I think important to remember. And I'm hopeful that as trans visibility and gay visibility and bi visibility and everything advances moving forward, that we can keep moving the pendulum and arc of justice in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ellis, I will address your earlier point that you were talking about. You were surprised that Kagan and Sotomayor didn't. I can see the three of them talking about, this is our opportunity to write an opinion to get the legislature to see the roadmap. So you know what, Justice Brown, write the opinion that this is not just about political speech, and let's work on giving the rest of the people an opportunity to figure out this is how you have to write it to set up the Supreme Court to put its foot in its mouth until we decide we can figure out how we're going to fix that problem of the Supreme Court. That's kind of just my personal take on it from reading the cases and what happens. It's not always that the important thing isn't that they land on the same side as Justice Brown, but do they land on the same side of giving us the tools to advocate is what I think it comes down to.
Yeah, I think that's a super interesting point, Renay. I saw that in a lot of the commentary too, is that the opinions are written kind of in negotiation together. And if Kagan and Sotomayor joined the majority opinion here, what did they get out of this? And I think your point there is exactly it, is they got their ability to write the roadmap into the majority opinion so that we're able to sharpen our laws to protect children.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to close on a little fun fact of history. Maybe it's not fun, but something I learned in this process is that our Supreme Court kind of has a long history of ignoring science. And by long, I mean like very long. Like in 1893, the Supreme Court was asked to decide literally whether a tomato was a fruit or a vegetable.
Oh, no.
And it was a case called Nix v. Hedden, and it had to do with tariffs and whether a tomato had to follow the fruit tariff or the vegetable tariff. And botanically speaking, this is very clear. A tomato is a fruit. In fact, the court even knew that. They acknowledged it in their opinion. But then they ruled that it was a vegetable anyways, because, and I'm quoting a Supreme Court justice here, people eat it with their dinner instead of dessert.
Oh,
and so, 130 years ago, whatever that was, 130 years ago-ish, the highest court in the land looked at science and was like, nope, we're gonna say it's this because that's how people use it. So, at least back then the stakes were tomato tariffs and what we're paying for a vegetable, apparently. Unfortunately, them setting aside science today potentially is leading to children being harmed. But, I think, as Renay has said multiple times, like organizing, put those 26 state bans in place, science and advocacy of allies in our own community, brought the cultural and legal changes to those 26 states and frankly, all over our country. And those same tools will be what gets us to sharper protections in the future that will pass First Amendment constraints here. So,
and I also put the link where the opinion can be found if you want to download it and read it. I think the Supreme Court has gotten a little bit better in terms of writing cases that are understandable by lay people and not always just understandable by us attorneys. So it's interesting read even if you don't have a legal background.
All right. Well, thanks for joining me tonight, Renay. If everyone can give her a round of applause.
Thank you for including me, Dan. It was an honor to sit next to you to talk about these important issues.
Absolutely. And thanks for having us, John.
Well, thank you both so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to have you, Dan, here, and it's always a pleasure to have you, Renay. So I'm really grateful for the discussion. And I'm really sorry on behalf of United States of America, white, cis, straight men, and so forth, that this has come to pass. But I appreciate being in the fight with everybody on this shit. And,
thank you for being an ally, John.
Yeah, of course. So we have 3 more minutes. If anyone has any last ballots to get, anybody, while we wait, have any announcements that you want to make while we wait for the final last few votes to trickle in? I'll just remind everyone our next meeting is on April 22nd. And we're really excited because I'm looking at the moderator of that event. Well, first of all, we have our board election. So first of all, Kay Ambrose and Andrew Sprung are going to be but are going to be joining the board if everybody approves the election, which is uncontested, but we're really excited about bringing them in. And then we're going to also have Jake Levine come by who's running for Congress. But then the main event, it's Earth Day, so we're going to do a panel discussion about um, the environment under Trump and how it's really affecting disproportionately, uh, these communities that are always the ones that bear the brunt of this stuff. So Ellis Raskin, who in addition to being our amazing council member, is also an environmental attorney. So he's going to be moderating that panel, and we are working on we have some great speakers that are already lined up. One I'll share is Lorraine Lundquist, former LA City Council candidate, and former guest of our club. But we have a lot more coming, and we're working on that. But yeah, it's going to be great. And then on May, our next meeting after that, May 27th, and we're just starting to put it together, but we're going to be working on uh, a panel about ice resistance and the work that's been going on this year, to track and provide assistance to those who are being, to track what ICE is doing and to provide assistance to those who are being targeted. And we're still honing in that meeting, but just wanted to just share the news while we're waiting that's the topic for that next meeting.
And John, can I make a quick announcement?
Yeah, please do. Yeah.
Pride season is coming, and I want you to know that last year during Pride season, we had a very dismal show out for many of our Pride events. They weren't as supported. We didn't have the allies coming out as we did as big as we did before. We need you to march with us, people. And Stonewall would love to have you march with us. You can wear your "I'm not gay, but my boyfriend is" t-shirt. We have a lot of fun together, marching together, and there's power in numbers. So, and I also want to thank Judy Abdo for coming to our event this weekend. Judy has a historic role, first lesbian who was elected to public office as a mayor, I think, in the country. Would that be right, Judy? She doesn't, but Judy's amazing. She's an amazing leader, and I really appreciate your support this weekend at Jeff Prang's event at the Lantern House. Thank you.
Okay.
P.S. You go to the stonewalldems.org website, and on our calendar, there's a Pride guide. Click on it and come just join us.
Derek?
I just want to say I don't know, all the electeds that happened in the time that I was elected. And I don't know if I was the only lesbian or only out lesbian, but I was elected as a lesbian.
Well, we're proud of that for sure. We have the results. And Derek, do you want to share something too?
I was just going to say for announcements that the DNC meeting is upcoming this week. I'll be going to New Orleans, and the Disability Caucus should have a somewhat significant announcement. Thanks. That's all. Thanks, John.
Very interesting. Very intriguing. Okay. We have the results. Let's go to it. Here we go. 43 ballots submitted. Justin Clayton received 23 votes, which is 54.76%. Very sorry to say for Mr. Clayton that our bylaws are very clear that it says at least 55%. So this is not a rounding situation, and we have to go with no consensus here. and Anna is above the 20%, so that we can't have a round three either. So those are the results, and thank you to everyone who participated. And now we will, for those who are still here, we'll go in the same numerical order. And if anyone wants to share for about 1 minute, please, maybe 30 seconds. It's pretty late. Just let you say thank you and so forth. But first up, Tal Valbuena.
Thank you very much for your support. I'm honored to receive your endorsement. Happy to be here. Thank you for providing us the time and space of your meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Tal. Angie Christides.
Thank you, everyone, for your endorsement. I'm slowly losing my voice. Sorry. I'm very honored to have your endorsement, and I really appreciate your support and your time. I know this was a long meeting. Thank you for your consideration.
Thanks, Angie. Maria Ghobadi.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much. I know it's late and you guys are all stepping away from your families, your lives, your everything. So I genuinely appreciate the support and the endorsement. I'm very honored by it, and I am grateful. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Maria. And now is Ben Forer here? Okay, we'll go to David Walgren.
Thank you, everyone, for your time and your consideration. I really appreciate the endorsement. And I just want to thank you all for the attention you gave this. I really appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Thank you, David.
Judge Walgren.
Sorry.
Which
Sorry.
David?
You're right. Thank you, Judge Walgren.
That's quite all right.
And now we'll go to Paul Thompson.
I just want to say thank you to everybody. I very much appreciate your support. And I want to say a special thanks to Michael and Derek for, taking the time to interview me and recommending my endorsement. I really appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Paul. Now we'll go to Zach.
Just want to thank everybody very much for the support. I really appreciate it. I'm saying what everybody else has said. I also really appreciate the presentation tonight, and I appreciate everyone caring enough about these races to really spend the time to listen to us and to make decisions. So thank you very, very much. I appreciate it because it does matter.
Thank you, Zach Smith. And is Ryan Dibble here? Okay, so those are all the candidates we endorse. So thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next time. See you in a couple weeks. Have a good one.
Thank you.
We're adjourned.